Another kill that I really enjoyed in this movie, this actually did make me chuckle as I was sitting here watching it, is the girl that's mime dancing. And it
Oh,
happens for like 5 minutes
so
for
stupid.
scenes that linger too long. She's just like sitting there, just doing this like robotic mime dancing, like just doing this. And then she would just start the routine over again. You're like, all right, man. Like I need Jason to kill her because I am sick of watching this.
That scene was ridiculous too when she's in there doing, she's in there dancing, and then the other kid with the stutter comes to the door and he's like, "I need to talk to you," and she's like, "Not now. I'm doing the robot." Like,
Yeah.
just fires. Like, what are you doing?
Welcome in everybody to another horror movie review where we are going back to one of the classic series. It's been a while, but we have to adhere to the calendar because what kind of show would we be if we didn't review a Friday the 13th movie for a Friday the 13th? Today we are going to be talking about Friday the 13th, Chapter 5, A New Beginning. I am Rob Coakley, joined as always by Dave Wilkins
Hello, Rob Coakley.
and Jesse Wilkins.
Very excited to review this movie. Another Friday the 13th. They've been a lot of fun so far. Let's see how this one goes.
Yeah, it's been a while. I don't think we've had one since like January or something. So
That sounds about right.
it's been a bit. I think we get another one relatively quick, and then I think they go away again for a while. But let's get into part 5. Dave, can you hit us with that synopsis, please, sir?
I can indeed. Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, directed by Danny Steinman. Years after Tommy Jarvis murdered hockey masked serial killer Jason Voorhees, he resides in a mental hospital and struggles with the trauma of the experience. When Tommy moves to an isolated halfway house, he has nightmares about Jason's return, and soon one of the patients is killed. As the body count grows, Tommy begins to question his sanity and wonder if Jason has risen from the dead. But to determine the killer's identity, Tommy will need to survive. So, spoiler alert, we're going to spoil this movie, and I'm going to spoil it right now. This movie was notorious for being the worst of the series. It's widely regarded as the worst of the series, and a lot of that has to do with the way it ended. It's kind of had like a Halloween 3 situation going on where everybody hated Halloween 3 because of what that was. And I mean, I could actually say it without spoiling that movie. Halloween 3 did not have Michael Myers, and they went a completely different direction, told a different story altogether, and everyone hated it, but they disregarded the fact that it was actually a good movie if they just didn't, they were expecting to have Michael Myers in it. But this is kind of the same idea because everyone expected this to be Jason as the killer and another Friday the 13th movie, which it was right up until the end. In the end, you find out that Jason was not the killer. It was somebody else entirely. And everyone kind of hated that. Now, there are obviously other reasons that people regard this as the worst of the series. And I agree with some of that and I disagree with some of that. I don't think it's the worst of the series. I thought it was pretty enjoyable overall. There was some really bad acting and some really shallow kills and pretty felt like a rushed plot altogether. But it was still kind of fun.
I think it's a fun enough movie, but some of the things you said are completely true. And man, were they cranking these things out? This is part 5 that came out in 1985. Part 1 came out in 1980. They were just going into production on these things, like just screwing around, like not screwing around, just trying to get as many Friday the 13th in theaters as possible. Kind of remarkable that they were able to just like bang, 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 bang. They also don't care anything about timelines and how time works or anything like that. Tommy Jarvis just gets aged up just like Jason Voorhees does,
Yep.
just out of nowhere. You know, like they don't even tell you what year it is, how many years later. He's 40, he's a 40-year-old teenager that shows up to this little camp for teens with issues. And I want to talk about the characters in this movie to start off because they don't build anyone, including Tommy Jarvis, in this movie, in my opinion. Like, it's real limited with him, but it's really disjointed for the characters. A lot of the formula of these movies is you get a camp, a bunch of camp counselors or a group of people that are at the camp, like, 6 to 10 people, and you learn those characters in the beginning and they start dying off. But it felt like there was like 4 different factions of people within this movie.
Mm.
You have the camp counselors, you had the really bad mother and son situation. We get introduced to like 2 random dudes in a car, then we get introduced to 2 random people in a diner, and then we just get introduced to Reggie the Reckless's brother that lives in a van down by the river, I guess. What's going on? He's supposed to be super cool. They just knew he was there. Like, we're gonna go visit your brother that's living in a van somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, and they were just trying to pump up the kill count. I think this movie has the highest kill count of the franchise. If not, it's up to that point. It does. I don't know if they've outdone it in recent years, but I'm pretty sure this one is the one with the highest kill count. And they were just introducing characters to kill immediately. There was one scene in particular where there was, and the director explained that this kind of pissed him off, that the producers made them do this because he had a sex scene that he really wanted to be in the movie because he thought it was going to develop the plot. And it would have been the first thing that developed the plot if it happened at all. But he's like, he really wanted that because like you would have got to see the people just having fun and doing something normal. And
So it wasn't a sex scene for Jason, just to clarify. It wasn't going to be a sex scene for Jason himself.
No. Did that sound like what I was implying?
No, I'm just like, if it's going to develop the plot, maybe Jason's involved, then we get some emotion from Jason in this one.
But he said that the producer said, no, this is too pornographic. So they cut the scene and replaced it with just some random dude watching them in the woods, and he gets killed by Jason, or not Jason, but you know what I mean? He gets killed, and they replaced it with that scene. So just another empty kill for no reason for a character that did not exist in the movie, and ended up just being so random.
The version that I watched had both.
It
had that scene, and then it also had the dude getting killed.
It
did get, I would assume, cut short, or just a really poor performer.
Yeah, so it did. The scene got cut. So what you saw them in the woods getting ready to do the deed, and then it cuts to this random guy, and then when it cuts back, he said that they had already completed the deed, so it replaced the actual sex scene that he wanted.
Oh, okay.
And that pissed him off. But
can we stay on that scene for a second, because
sure.
I do have a note about it in my little note here. Is they finish having sex, they're in the woods, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go wash up.
In the woods.
He did head to a river.
I know, but like, you're gonna go wash up in that dirty ass river? That was brown water.
How far was the river? Because she screamed at the top of her lungs and he didn't hear her. So that river must have been really far.
Yeah, he's so far away. Like, I was like, okay, I know it's for plot convenience, but can we get a little bit of something that makes sense? Say he was going to the bathroom and make her not scream. She just
his kill on her was pretty good. Now I know they cut away from it, so they didn't really show the, what was it, like the trimmers or whatever those things were.
Yeah.
That he basically put into her eyeballs and then closed, so it like made a slit like that cut open from eye to eye, which was pretty brutal, because when he went back and rolled over the body, you saw the injury, and that was pretty cool. I will say, like, the way this movie started, the kills were really dull. A lot of cutaway kills, a lot of just, oh, okay, he's going to stab the guy in the back of the head. Just stuff that happens in every slasher movie. But as the movie progressed, the kills got a little bit more gruesome, and I actually liked some of the kills in this movie.
Some of them were good, but a lot of them were just cutaway. And it was just, I mean, there were so many of them that probably the budget probably didn't allow for them to film every single graphic kill. Although I know there's a director's cut of this with some of the extended kills, like the guy with the axe in the beginning that was a little bit longer in the director's cut. But yeah, for the most part, it was just empty kills with characters you don't really know, because they didn't waste any time developing anyone or making a plot. And this is an 80s slasher, so you don't really expect much character development. or plot development, especially in a Friday the 13th movie where it's pretty much just the same movie over and over and over again. But this one felt like it was the least effort.
I would say with the kills overall in this movie, and I know like it's a movie and things have to happen, but this movie in particular felt like characters had to get to a very specific location in order for him to do the kill he's planning on doing. And they
Mhm.
just always show up there. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's never like so like there's the sleeping bag kill that we'll get to in whatever part that happens in. It's like that's like an impromptu Jason thing. It feels like it wasn't a setup. They were already there. He did it. This one it felt like
We'll just talk about it since we're talking about it.
well, he picks them up in the sleeping bag while they're in the tent, and then he beats them against a tree.
Yeah.
It's great. It's one of the best kills in Friday the 13th.
But I don't really see how that's an example of what you're saying. Or
Well, I'm
was
just
it
saying,
not?
like, he walked up on that situation and they were already there, and he was just like, well, this is something I can do.
Yeah.
Where we go back to this one and where after the girl dies after the sex scene, when the guy gets done washing up in the water and playing karate, walking back down the path, the way he has to die is he has to specifically walk in front of the tree that Jason is behind so that he could get him with the leather strap that he has in order to tourniquet it. Or if he's not behind,
unless Jason was just following him.
but he still had to walk backwards to that tree.
True.
Right. So like
Yeah.
it had to be that specific tree.
But the kill was cool.
The kill was cool.
And the worst case scenario, the worst case example of this was when he's in the house and the girl goes into the bunk bed and she goes on top and the other dead body's already there.
Mhm.
He would have already have had to bend because he grabs her from the bottom bunk. She's walking around that room beforehand. She can't see that he's just laying there like, don't see me.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here. You know,
Yeah,
like,
he was
come
dark.
on, bro. I just don't like the kills of convenience. I like when Jason almost looks like he's doing impromptu kills. And another example is Friday the 13th Part 3, like when he kills the girl in the water with the like thing that was meant to look like it was coming at your own face because of the 3D
Oh yeah,
in the water. Like it felt like he didn't plan. It just like, this is here, this is what I'm going to use type of deal, rather than like, it just felt like he was masterminding little traps.
Also,
set up.
with the way that the plot goes, since it's not really Jason Voorhees and he's not an experienced serial killer, he shouldn't be this good at this stuff, right? He
Right.
shouldn't be like, well, if I stand here, he should back into this tree.
Yeah.
Right. It just doesn't seem, he shouldn't be, it should have been a little bit more sloppy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. I agree with that. There was something in this movie that they kept doing over and over again, and it started to become a theme. And I thought it was going to amount to some sort of symbolism or mean something with the plot, and it ended up just not. He went after people's eyes a lot. There were at least 3 different kills where he specifically went after their eyes. There was the one that we already talked about with the hedge clipper things. Then there was the belt up against the tree, and then there was another one where he killed another girl, and her body had her eyes cut out. And it seemed like it was going to be a thing. So I'm like, I wonder what this is going to be. I wonder what this is going to lead to. Like what part of the plot is this going to support, or what kind of twist? And then it was just nothing. It was like, all right, fine, I guess, but why? Just seems like a weird thing to focus on, because it's not like it's something that happens in every movie.
Yeah. I wonder if he was trying to say like, but it doesn't make sense either. Like they were there, they saw it, and they didn't stop it. Like, but how would they have?
Maybe.
I thought they were doing something with the axe because the son dies by axe, and then Jason's using an axe for a little bit in the movie. So I thought that he was just using the same weapon that killed his son.
Yeah,
a lot, and it kind of goes and comes away a few times. So
that scene was ridiculous. He was just an annoying guy with a chocolate bar, and then he's annoying the guy who happened to be chopping, because that's what you do at a basically an institution for people with PTSD and mental disorders is give them an axe and send them to go chop wood.
Or pointlessly chop a log the wrong way. Also, he had, I don't know if you guys remember this, like those studded belts that like they sell at like a Hot Topic. He had one of those as an armband, and it looks so goofy. So maybe that's why he was stressed out. Maybe it was just cutting off the pressure to the rest of his arm. No blood pressure, stressed out. Guy with the chocolate bar comes up. He's like, I can't eat that. I can't feel my left arm. Hits him with an axe.
The guy chopping wood also looked like an old Henry Rollins as well.
Yeah, wasn't this supposed to be a thing for like troubled youths? This dude
Yeah.
was at least 47.
He was so old. There's a few characters in this movie that I'm like, I just can't buy the age of this person for this. Like the dude that drives up for the waitress at the diner.
Oh
Like,
yeah, I liked his character.
but he
But
felt
the
like
waitress didn't look that young either.
no, but it just like I don't know, it just felt like should have been younger people for that particular situation. Like he's in the car, like ready for a night out. It's like, dude, you're 70. Like
He did look much older. I mean, but she also looked relatively old. I guess I didn't have too much of a problem with that because they weren't trying to play them off as high schoolers
I agree.
like they do in so many other movies.
No, and I'm not even saying high schoolers, but I thought they should have been like 20s or something. It just felt like he was acting like he was 20 something, right?
Yeah, you kind of got that vibe a little bit, but then at the same time, it's I know there's been a few of these movies where they have the over the top characters, but the redneck mother and son were they were so over the top obnoxious. They weren't even fun obnoxious. They were just obnoxious. Like it was so forced and they survived for way too long. And the stupid scene where he's riding his motorcycle around the yard was number one, way too long. Number two, they kept using the same cuts of him doing loops around the yard. It's like, dude, we get it. We get it. He's driving his motorcycle around the yard and on the porch and over the porch, which is actually kind of impressive that he was able to pull that off. But at the same time, it's like you know he's going to get his head cut off. You know Jason's going to step from behind a tree and cut off his head, but sure enough, he does. Why not do it a minute and 45 seconds earlier? Why did we have to watch him scream and drive around the yard? My kids are walking. They're like, what are you watching? I'm like, stop. He's going to die soon. Get out of here. Not soon enough, but eventually he's going to get him.
You didn't even hit the best part of that whole thing is he's screaming, but if you watch the video that they keep looping, his mouth's not moving at all. So it's like really bad ADR adding this over the top scream and his mouth is just closed the whole time he's rolling around the thing. I'm like, come on, guys.
You guys are missing the most preposterous part of this scene because his mom's yelling at him from the kitchen saying, I'm making you dinner. I'm making you dinner. She's getting annoyed. And then she just spits in the stew.
Oh, yeah. Well, she did that because he was pissing him off. But we're not looking at the logical thing here, which is she is breaking apart fresh carrots.
Yeah.
Dunking them in and saying dinner is
It's
ready.
ready.
It's not ready.
It's not
You're
ready.
still adding ingredients. And it's soup. It's supposed to be boiling. She has her hands all in it. It's like that's supposed to be hot. There was a lot of things wrong with that scene. Now I understood that her cooking didn't look the best.
No, it didn't look good. It
didn't look good.
No, it didn't inspire.
But why are we dumping it into a pot if the pot is not full of hot liquid?
Yeah.
She's just dunking her hands. Yeah. Yep. They couldn't die soon enough. And unfortunately, they let that scene linger way too long to where it knocked off at least a full 5 points from me.
Is this
shit.
Is this the first horror movie that the mayor actually brings up a good point and is actually not a complete villain? Where he's just like, you need to catch this killer. Like, it's not like, what are we doing? Go look for him. And he's like, it's Jason Voorhees. He's like, no, it's not. He's dead. Go figure out who it is. Stop sitting in the police station.
He's like, find me a living suspect. It's the most reasonable thing. And he was right.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just like, come on, dude. And no one knew that what the ambulance driver's kid looked like when they're like, we can't find the father. He lives in the area. We couldn't figure this out. I know it's 1985, but come on.
Yeah, I did notice some clues early on in this movie that it wasn't Jason Voorhees. I mean, like his hands were very human and not dirty at all in a lot of scenes. You noticed it particularly when he was like tying the belt around the guy's eyes, and his skin didn't look like it did in the previous movies. So I think you were getting hints towards where this movie was going, where it's almost kind of like obviously Scream came, 20 years later or whatever, but like it was kind of like a Scream movie where it's like whoever throws on the mask can be the new killer. But I understand why it didn't really work.
But the mask is the other big clue in this movie. That is like the biggest of all the clues.
The blue diamonds versus the red ones.
The blue versus the red. It doesn't have the marks that the old mask had as well. It's more of a newer, fresher one.
Mhm.
So that is another clue. And the biggest clue of all is when they just let the camera stay on the paramedic for 3 minutes as he stared angrily.
Yeah. Yep.
They were just like, we're just going to keep a tight shot on this guy for some reason. Maybe he's the killer. Who knows? Who else could it be?
So all of the characters were ridiculous in this. There's all pretty much bad acting across the board. The final girl was okay, but there were some that were just overacting so hard, and that was, we already talked about the annoying mother son tandem there, and also the other villainous paramedic was so over the top. He was the most ridiculous person. Like no one behaves like that. Like just an absolute villain, and he wasn't the villain.
Right.
Like, what is going on?
The final girl was like, I know Tommy Jarvis is technically like the quote unquote final girl in this movie. It's a Tommy Jarvis movie,
Mhm.
but the final girl you're referring to, she was actually pretty good. And I know they were doing that thing with her and Reggie the Reckless, who I actually also liked in this movie.
Mhm.
But I felt like they just should have set them up better than they did, especially the girl. It's just like she's just gone for so long, and then she's a vital part of the end of this. It was very much not like we've talked about it. The characters are so spread out that there's no really well done character development on any of these people.
No, so the character dialogue was really poorly written. The character, like the character plot line was really poorly written. This movie, I won't say the whole movie was poorly written in general. I think like if you take the synopsis of this movie and then add the ending to it, it's like that's a pretty cool story. I like it. Like it's a good story. It looks like it should pan out into a good movie, but I think it was very much rushed. Nobody knew this was going to be a Friday the 13th movie when they hired the cast for it. They thought it was going to be an 80s slasher because everyone was under the impression that the Friday the 13th franchise was over,
Right.
because the fourth one was supposed to be the final one. And when they hired the cast, they didn't tell them, and they didn't even realize they were filming a Friday the 13th movie until like halfway into production. And then they wouldn't tell anyone the ending. Like they didn't even write the ending into the script because they wanted it to be kept a secret that much. They took it that seriously, and they made everybody sign NDAs to make sure that they don't tell about the ending. And this was your product, and it just wasn't that good.
Yeah,
but it was rushed.
Or they were just writing it on set as they
Yeah,
went, and they were just like,
maybe.
we're not telling you the ending, and they're just like turning around like, shit, we got to write this ending soon because we got these people for 4 more days, and if we don't film this, we're cooked. Almost like they were rushing it and just trying to get one of these out every single year in the 1980s.
Yeah, which I think they did, right? Or did they slow it down after this?
I think they skipped like 1 year. Like I think there was like 1 year without a Friday the 13th movie in the 80s or close to it or something like that. Just like mind melting when you think about it.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the girl, the waitress, when she's dying in the car. This is the worst situational awareness from a victim that I've ever seen in my entire life. She's in the car. She looks down. She sees the drugs. She goes for them. And then she finally sees, first of all, she doesn't even like check out to see what's going on with the driver's side door open. There's your first clue as you're walking out. Like, why is that door open? You probably look around a little bit, and all she had to do was look on the ground and see his body right there. Right. Instead, she gets in the car for some reason. And then when Jason does show up, she has trouble getting out of the car, and she's not looking around to see where he is at all. As she finally does get out of the car, I'm like, this is the worst. I'm sorry. I know you didn't do anything, but you kind of deserve it now. Like you kind of deserve it because you weren't situationally aware. You should have played sports to know situational awareness, and you failed at this. And I'm not sorry that you're dead because of it.
So you're right and you're wrong. Her situational awareness was terrible, but it was not the worst situational awareness in the movie. This came earlier in the movie when the 2 dudes were trying to fix the car in the woods, and one of them was dead, lying on the front of the car, face in the engine, The other one comes back and says, "Man, you better have this car fixed." And no, he didn't come from the back of the car. He came from the front, where he had to walk right by the dead body. And he does give a good line. He's like, "You better be dead, or this car better be working." And shocker, he was dead, which was kind of funny. But they blew it again, because when he started up the engine, that thing should have been smoking. His face should have been like, his buddy's face should have been burning. He should have noticed the smoke and the fiery body first. That would have been a cool little scene, because he started the car with a dead body just face first into the engine. But they blew it. And yes, his situational awareness was far worse. Both bad.
His situational awareness was far worse, but it wasn't the worst of the whole movie.
Oh no, you also have one?
It comes towards the end with the final girl and the little kid that she was saving. And it was when the kid hit Jason with the tractor, and he was knocked out on the ground, still breathing. And they just slowly approach him, and they're looking at him, and they notice that he's breathing, and they take a couple steps closer, and it felt like a full minute. They're standing there just watching him. And then of course he grabs the ankle, and then it's like, "Well, you idiot. Of course.
Yeah. What do you
This
think?
is a fucking horror movie. What do you
Dummy.
think's going to happen?"
Dummy, you deserve this now. That scene that you brought up, Jesse, though, I've never seen worse improvised acting in my entire life, because you know that they put him in that car and they were like, just say stuff until Jason gets you, like, just so that it's, and they just were like, and you only get one take.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I'm in a car. I'm in this car. I hope it works. I hope the car works. Hurry up. I'm going to try to start the car. And you're just like, dude, I don't think you've ever driven a car, because you don't know what to say, or you've never broken down.
It's I like the theory that it's improv, because at least that's an excuse as to why it was so bad. That is so much worse if it's not improv.
Right.
If someone wrote that, fire them.
Another kill that I really enjoyed in this movie, this actually did make me chuckle as I was sitting here watching it, is the girl that's mime dancing. And it happens for like 5 minutes for scenes that linger too long. She's just like sitting there, just doing this like robotic mime dancing, like just doing this. And then she would just start the routine over again. You're like, all right, man. Like I need Jason to kill her, because I am sick of watching this.
I saw an interview of her talking about how iconic that scene was. It's like, that sounds so bad coming from you. Delusional. That scene was ridiculous too, when she's in there she's in there dancing, and then the other kid with the stutter comes to the door, and he's like, "I need to talk to you." And she's like, "Not now. I'm doing the robot." Like, just like, what are you doing? So stupid.
That dialogue's also bad, because after that she goes, "Can it wait?" And he leaves the room and goes, "No." And we're like,
well, so no, but you're saying yes.
Yeah. So stupid.
Absolutely ridiculous. There's so many.
Back to those kids with the car there. That was a pretty good kill. I liked it with the road flare.
Yeah, that was
his whole head lights up
right in the mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. They had some good ones, like you said. There's too many cutaway ones, and I wouldn't be shocked if this is right around when they started getting, the sensors started coming down on them to tone it down. Part 7, I know, is when they really hammered them and made them cut a ton of stuff out of that particular movie. So they might have started feeling the heat around this one, and they had to go back to that. And it also felt like they were trying to go back to the first movie with some of the way it was shot a little bit. So that might have been something they were thinking as well. Overall,
it felt like it was they're trying to kind of recapture the vibes of that first movie, especially with the Jason not being the killer, right? That's kind of the same idea as the first movie.
Yeah. I just, to Jesse's point, I just really hate when they try to mix in these really over the top characters that's just not who anybody is for the most part.
It was kind of a trope in the 80s with slashers, though. You had the same thing or even in the late 70s with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that really over the top annoying character. And then you had it in I think a couple of the different, I think every Friday the 13th has one just crazy over the top, like, what is this character doing? And there's in so many different slashers where they have that kind of super annoying over the top character.
Well, they had like Crazy Fred in the first 2 movies, or whatever his name was. The guy that's like, there's a death curse there. Like he's just in a closet for some reason. That guy was a little over top. He was a little funny. I don't think part 4, from what I recall, had any crazy over the top characters, but yeah, it's just sometimes too much. Overall, I think it's a fine movie. Do you guys have anything else you want to hit on before we get into scores?
No, we can score it.
Not really.
Oh, should we talk about the ending? I think we should talk about the ending real
Okay.
quick, since we didn't do that. The reveal, we've already like spoiled the reveal that it's the paramedic, which is like fine, whatever. I mean, who else was it going to be at this point? We knew it wasn't going to be Tommy Jarvis. It was too much of a, red herring. I hate what they do at the absolute end of this movie. Like, it drives me bonkers that they did this, because it's what they did at the end of part 4.
Yeah.
And at the end of part 4 doesn't set up for anything for part 5, because he's not actually the killer. And you're just doing literally the same thing. And it's so stupid to repeat that. Like, oh, well, at the end of part 4, it looked like he was going to be a killer, but he's not the killer in part 5, but maybe he's going to be the killer in part 6. Like, come on, dude. What are we doing?
It felt lazy, and it felt like it felt the problem with this franchise, and it is my favorite slasher franchise, but the problem is how they don't even try to make the movies different. Like, they're different a little bit here and there, but it really is just the same carbon copy. This was probably the furthest they got away from the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing over and over. Like, this is the first one that wasn't at Camp Crystal Lake, right?
I believe so. And to your point, yeah, they almost copied part 4, like beat for beat, because you just replaced Tommy Jarvis with Reggie the Reckless as the child hero in that. So to your point, they kind of do almost the same thing. It's just same script. I didn't love it. I just did not love that part of it. I don't think it's the worst in the franchise. We'll get to some of those later, but I definitely don't like this one. Like, because I feel like we came off of 3 really strong ones. I think part 2, 3, and 4 are all particularly strong. A lot of people think 4 is the best one. I teeter a little bit on that. I like part 2. I like part 3 a lot. I like part 2 a lot. I like part 3. There's some really good kills in both of them. And then I feel like this one just kind of starts to show some degrading quality. We get a little spike with the next one, just to give a quick spoiler that I like part 6. But this is where we start to see a little bit degrading on the franchise as a whole, I think.
Yeah. The franchise definitely moved in a different direction from here. And I think I actually agree with this one being like the last kind of conventional one. And it had to be. Like, if they made the same movie over again.
Yeah.
There's only so many times you can do it,
Yeah, they tried a few different things. Do you have any closing thoughts before we get into scores, Jesse?
No, no, I don't.
All right. I'm going to give this one, I'm going to give it a 2.8. Oh, is that what you're going to give it?
I had a 2.9. We're close, though.
This is a 2.8 for me. I think it's because it's slightly above average. I think there's some worse movies to come that I definitely want to give lower scores to in this franchise. I think some of the character development is the worst. I think this is actually the worst character development in any of the movies to date from parts 1 to 5.
Yeah.
I think some of the kills were lazy. I don't like that it's not Jason. I don't like the way they did it, I guess. I felt like they could have done it a better way. I really hate the Tommy Jarvis thing. I don't like Tommy Jarvis in this movie either.
No.
Not my Tommy Jarvis. Like there's better versions of Tommy Jarvis. This is the worst one.
Mm-hmm.
Does he ever even speak in this movie?
He does, but actually, does he?
I don't know if he even talks in this movie. It's just he's just like such a.
He had a lot of moments of complete silence, but I feel like he must have said a few words at some point.
Maybe when he showed Reggie the mask or something, he said something.
No, he didn't say anything when he showed him the mask.
He might not have talked this entire.
I think he spoke in that one scene where he randomly just like judoed that dude into a table.
Just out of nowhere.
So there's so many random moments like that in this movie.
It was pretty impressive, actually. I was kind of happy with that scene. Like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I got this
What's
one
your
at I got this one at an even 2.5. I would have had it probably in like the threes, but I honestly the motorcycle scene took off like a full point for me. It was like there's nobody that saw this. It was like maybe we cut down this guy screaming on a motorcycle to 5 seconds, not a
yeah
full three
yeah
and a half minutes of this man being increasingly obnoxious and his mother just in the kitchen also being obnoxious. Like we get it. They're ridiculous people. They're supposed to be like the comedic relief or whatever in this movie, but it just wasn't. It was just obnoxious. So
There's
yeah.
there's a lot of stuff they could have done to make this movie higher, like worthy of a higher rating. But if they didn't change anything about it, they could have got a higher rating from me at least if they just marketed it as a horror comedy, because
yeah
this movie would have hit if it was the exact same movie marketed as a horror comedy, it would have hit so different. And I
yeah.
think that it would have really highlighted a lot of the more ridiculous moments, and it would have been more amusing.
Can we just talk about the outhouse scene really quick because we missed that? Because Miguel Nunez is the guy that's in the outhouse. He went on to actually have a pretty decent Hollywood career. He was in a bunch of movies and sitcoms. He was Joanna Man. I don't know if you guys remember
Oh, no
that
kidding.
movie. Yeah, so that's who that was. That scene cracked me up because of the tonal change over the course of that 2 minutes. Like she's messing, like his girlfriend's messing with him and like shaking the thing, and he's like, "You better stop, bitch." And then, and then they start just singing a song together.
I
What?
forgot about that. It was so weird. And it was
Just
so weird. So not even just the tonal change, the fact that he's taking a shit in an outhouse and they're just like ears to the wall singing to each other. Like, dude, get away from me.
You and your wife don't do this?
Yeah.
and then like after they sing the song, like, you know, the fake Jason starts shaking the thing. He's like, "I told you before it wasn't funny. Now you gonna find out, bitch." It's like, what is this movie right now?
Again, if it's a horror comedy though, that's a great scene. That's hilarious.
Also,
That's
bad
old school
situational
funny.
awareness.
I honestly thought he acted pretty well in that scene. Like other than
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the weird writing, but like the moment where he's trying to like stand up and move around the porta potty situation while Jason's trying to stab him through the wall. Some good acting there. I actually thought he was a good actor.
Yeah, Miguel Nunez is pretty good, but he gets terrible direction because after he gets stabbed through the wall, he's like, "I need to get my back right up against this wall." Now it's like, dude, that's where the stuff's coming from.
Yeah, like we don't know what we would do in that situation, but my instinct would be boot open that door and flee. Like there's no way I'm staying in that box, but you know, you don't know what you'll do when you faced with the life and death
I'm at least standing in the middle or like on the toilet or something. Like I'm not putting my back against where the stabbing object is coming through. You know what I mean? That was
Hear me out. I'm getting in the porta potty inside the toilet and I'm throwing shit out. And that will keep who's gonna want to come in and kill me then?
You're throwing it out where?
Just out.
Toilet.
Just out. Well, if I hear the killer come in, just
But it's like an enclosed structure, Jesse. It's just gonna fall on you. You're just raining shit on yourself as you get stabbed to death.
Yeah, and he's gonna come in and be like, "That guy's crazier than I am. I'm leaving."
It's crazy. He already has septic from letting shit fall in these open wounds that I've given him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then maybe I'll stay there for a while.
Just covered in shit. All
Maybe
right.
Maybe he likes it.
Maybe I've done this before. All right, let's move on.
Well, that's going to do it for this review of Friday the 13th, Part 5. Let us know what your score is in the comments. Did you like this better than other movies? Do you think it's the weakest to date? Let us know. We'll catch you next time here from Hometown Ghost Stories. Peace.